On today's episode of Getting Out of the Machine with guest Ning Li. Ning's path from studying the muscle cells of elephant seals to dropping out of grad school and becoming an A-list copywriter. How a bad breakup led Ning to inadvertently become a persuasion expert. The process that both Ning and I used to get exceptionally good in a very short period of time. How psychedelics allowed Ning to see his own triggers and, in his opinion, supercharge his copywriting career. Then the dramatic conclusion. We discuss how Ning is getting messages from God that could change the world. And while I'm obviously skeptical, you shouldn't dismiss it until you hear the how and why. My name is Henry Bingaman. You're listening to Getting Out of the Machine. Ning, thanks for coming on the podcast. Happy to have you here.
I'm excited to be here, and thank you for having me.
So your background is as a copywriter. You helped Paleo Hacks go through one of their big growth phases. You were the top copywriter there. I think you've since gone independent as a copywriter, and you have a coaching program as well. Did I get that all right?
Yes.
So one of the reasons that I really wanted to talk to you, the podcast is called Getting Out of the Machine, and you were on a very different career path prior to starting copywriting. Can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, well, I've had a few zigs and zags, in my life. In my college days, early 20s, I was studying biology to become a biology teacher. And then I actually taught middle school and high school bio for like a year. And then I went back to school to a graduate program to get a PhD. And it was in studying the muscle cells of elephant seals. So as soon as I started that program, I found out that it probably wasn't for me. Like the way that my professor spent his day and his demeanor and his job, I was like, man, if I'm kind of headed on the path to be that, and that doesn't look fun, So I did the normal thing, which is type into Google, how do I make money online? And then I kind of found my way into copywriting. So that's kind of how I got out of the whole academia thing. And I just kind of busted I don't know if I can swear on this podcast or not.
Yeah, go for it.
I just busted my ass for about 2-3 years learning this skill, mostly on my own and with a little bit of direction from a mentor who I got really, really lucky to meet. And then I started getting work. So that's kind of how I got out of the whole academia world. But that was my main world before I transitioned to copywriting.
So what would you have been doing with the muscle cells of elephant seals?
I would have been, I quit 3 years in to my program. And what I was basically doing was going into the lab every day and pipetting shit. Those little agar gels. Yeah. I was growing muscle cells in those gels and just like putting solution on them and all kinds of crap. And then doing experiments with them, like putting them in hypoxic conditions, no oxygen, seeing how they react, giving them different solutions, some with a little more fat, some with a little more glucose, seeing how they, the difference in myoglobin content was what I was studying. So I would have done that. And then after 6 years, I would have written a thesis on that. And then after that, I would have done a postdoc and done more pipetting and been in a lab and did that for another 6 years. And then I would become a professor, and then I would be writing grants to the government asking for money to fund that stuff.
Yeah, that sounds pretty miserable, but you were really committed if you're 3 years into it. Was there like familial pressure? Was it just, this is the societal expectation, that's why I went into this? How did you get so far down that path before you changed lanes?
I was kind of lost in my 20s, I knew that teaching was something that I enjoyed. And then I didn't like the bureaucracy of say like middle school and high school. I did like the teaching aspect. So I thought maybe teaching at university would be fun, and I was a TA for a while and I did enjoy that. And it was a little bit of familial pressure. Like my parents were like proud that that I was going to get into a PhD program, that I was doing a PhD program. They were like, yes, good job. And that was one of the, few things they were proud of me for. And so that was it was a little bit of that. And it was a little bit of just, I didn't know what else there was. I didn't know what other path there was for me. So I kind of defaulted into it, So,
yeah, it's kind of interesting. So my path was, I went and got a degree in fiction writing in college. And, there's not a whole lot of jobs waiting for fiction writers that graduated with no published works. So my first job was as a flight attendant, making $20,000 a year, but flying all over the world. So when I found copywriting, like I didn't have anything else that made sense. it's an interesting that you had the fortitude to kind of be like, no, I'm going to give up this whole path that I've invested almost a decade in at that point, 4 years and then 3, right? In college and grads.
Yeah.
So where did you kind of find the motive? So one of the things that actually initially stopped me from, or made me hesitate, I think, from going into copywriting was like, it just, to my friends, it sounded like a scam industry. They're like, you're going to be writing, long form ads on the internet and you expect to get paid. So how did you kind of get past that peer pressure to stay on the track?
Okay. So the story gets a little bit more complicated if we're going to dive deeper. So I'll just tell the full story. Okay.
Yeah.
So basically I had, when I decided to get into the PhD program, I had gone through a big breakup in New York. Okay. So I spent most of my, I did my undergrad at Cornell and my teaching degree at Cornell. And I went through a big breakup, and my reaction to the breakup was to get into a PhD program. I don't know, that's just the way my brain worked at the time. So I applied to a bunch of places. I got into Colorado State, and I flew to Colorado State. And at the same time that I was doing all this academia stuff, I was getting into a lot of the men's dating material, and it was post this breakup. So it was my first time discovering that, there's educational material out there on how to improve my dating life. And so I got really into that. And then when I was following, you probably heard this name, Jason Capital.
I've heard of him. I don't know him.
Right. So he's one of the coaches in the dating space, or he used to be. And I was following his material, and it was all, online in the men's dating industry. And then he started coming out with products teaching you how to make money online. So at the same time that I was learning, that I was doing all this academia stuff and going out to the bars a lot and trying to improve my dating life, I was following this guy's material, and in one of his products that I bought, it basically said, if you improved your dating life with women, if you learn this skill, you can learn marketing. Okay. You have a big leg up in marketing because you understand psychology and all of that. And so I was like, hey, I did get good at this skill. I did, improve my dating life a lot. Like, maybe this is something that I can do. So it was that one line. It was like, if you got good with women, you can get good with marketing. I don't know who on his team came up with that, but I really took that to heart. And I was like, oh, I am good at learning skills. Okay. What if copywriting looks like a lucrative thing? Maybe I can do this. So that was the first kind of little fire that kind of lit up inside me. And I was like, oh, there's hope, right? There's hope out of this life of being poor. So I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to learn copywriting, or, if I'm going to start an online business or something, what would I start it in? Okay. So my first initial business was teaching Asian men dating. So I had a YouTube channel, and I wrote all my own VSLs, and I got the YouTube channel to like 40K subs or something. Okay. So I worked really hard at it for about 1.5 years. And this whole time, this is the other side of the puzzle. Okay. This whole time, when I was just in the dating phase, and I was going out to bars a lot, I would journal in this forum. It was a pickup artist forum, right? And I would journal and be like, oh, okay, so I know I'm good at this. I'm good at making this joke. This joke seems to work a lot. My goal is to talk to 20 women tonight. This is what I did well. This is what I didn't do well. I'd write my debriefs after I came home, and I was just kind of journal my experience to try to keep myself accountable and on track. And it was in this forum, and it became this long, it kind of worked on my writing chops too, because it became like this 20-page journal because I journaled so much. And people on the forum, these guys would start commenting on it, and some would start giving advice. And I could tell that most of it was just kind of BS advice from people who didn't really go out. But one guy started giving me advice that I could tell was like pretty knowledgeable. Okay. And his advice, I started taking it, and it started becoming like a mentor-mentee kind of relationship on this dating forum. Okay. And he started giving me advice on women. And at the time I was like, oh, I can't make a move to kiss a girl, even if I know that she's interested and she's attracted to me. I don't know what my mental block is. He helped me kind of move through some of that. And when I started writing in the same journal that I was learning this digital marketing stuff, and I was writing VSLs and learning this brand new thing called copywriting, this guy that was mentoring me with women just wrote, "Oh, hey, that's what I do. That's like my job. That's I work in that world." And I was like, "Wait, really?" So he started, I started sending him my VSLs, and he started just giving me some feedback, send it back to me. And that became our relationship for about a year and a half. Okay. And I knew as the further and further this happened, I knew that I was kind of getting lucky and getting a really good deal with someone who was really good. And I didn't know how good until he's like, "Okay, I think it's the point. Let's exchange Facebooks. Okay, get off this dating forum thing and exchange emails." And we did that. And then suddenly one day I'm listening to a Ken McCarthy podcast and I see his name on the podcast. And I was like, "Wait a minute, this guy's like a big deal." And that guy turned out to be Dan Ferrari.
That's crazy. Just happened to run into one of the top copywriters,
right,
in a
right.
forum.
Yeah. And so that he was just giving me feedback for free and mentoring me for, and he was like one of the only people I would tell people about this and be like, "What the hell are you doing? Like, what is this nonsense that you're doing?" But he was one of the few people that were like, "Hey, you have potential. You have talent in this. I see it. It's good. The writing. Let me give you feedback and I'm going to support you and believe in you." So he was like one of the few people that believed in me and said, "You can go down this path and there's a light at the end of the tunnel." So I took that and I held on to it. And that just became a relationship until it was maybe 2-3 years in. 2016, I think, is when he sent me an email one summer that said, "Hey, do you want to make some money?" And I said, yes. And then him and Aaron Winter, who was his mentor, flew into Denver to meet me. They gave me a test project to write a sales letter. And they gave me the test project. And I said, I don't care what it fucking takes. I don't care what I'm going to lock myself in the library and I'm going to make sure I pump this sales letter out and it's going to impress the fuck out of them. And then they're going to hire me. And so I did that for a month, submitted it. They were very impressed. And then that's how my kind of professional copywriting career started.
That's awesome. That's a great story.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I had a similar, so my first mentor was Jed Canty. Well, technically, so my first mentor was Mark Ford. Michael Masterson is his pen name. He wrote the AWAI 6-figure copywriting program. And he was one of the founders of Agora. So I was working with him a little bit in the health side at a company called Natural Health Dossier, which they gave me a flyer on a project there. I met them at just a conference. And they're like, "Oh, we have this product we're going to put under, like, it was the Early to Rise health division. And they were shutting down Early to Rise. And they're like, "Yeah, we're going to shut this division down. But if you want to take one crack at a sales letter to see if we can get anywhere with it." I'd done a couple sales letters at that point, but they're like, "Yeah, sure, try it." And so I wrote a sales letter. It was decent. And then I just worked with Mark for a couple months to perfect it. And it went on to do $1 million, my first $1 million sales letter, and kind of revived that business, which is actually still alive today.
Cool.
But then Mark introduced me to Jed Canty, who was the one who really took an interest in me. And he's like, "Okay, you have some talent. I'm going to work with you." And our first couple calls, he was working with Newsmax at the time. Mm-hmm. And they were doing a health promo, and he'd only done financial stuff before. So he's like, "Why don't you come over? You've done this health stuff. You can make sure I'm not doing anything stupid." And we had a couple phone calls on Skype that lasted for literally 12 hours, just reviewing copy. And I think just the fact that I was willing to do that, he's like, "All right, you have the determination to do what it takes." So, a lot of people, if you show any kind of initiative to somebody that's talented, you can really get on their radar.
Yeah. 12-hour Skype call. What?
12 hours. It's Jed is a madman. He's either entirely on or not paying attention at all. But he has the stamina. Like, we were both, I was in my 20s at that point. He was still in his 30s. It was
what the hell?
That was 2010. And that thing did well. So, that created a relationship that's still going today. So yeah, just showing people that you're interested and willing to work hard and smart. The other thing you were talking about earlier is you were breaking down you're just journaling about your attempts at the bars at night. Mm-hmm. I think that's something about copywriters that tend to do well is they're extremely analytical, is they don't go back and review things. So one of the things I did early on was I would break down every sales letter that was doing well into its constituent parts. And so I
Yeah.
would find like, where are the patterns here that things are doing well?
Yeah.
And, what's different in each one. So I ended up making some templates off of that I still use somewhat to this day.
That's like the basis of my entire, what I teach in copywriting. So when I started, Dan basically told me, go to swipe.co, which is owned by my buddy, Mike Schauer. Search for any ads, any old newspaper ads by Eugene Schwartz, Gary Bencivenga, or Gary Halbert, print them out, and then hand copy them, and then go back with a different color pen and then circle the different elements that you see. Okay, so whether the proof, the benefit, the this, the that, and circle all those so you start seeing the language over and over again. And now the way I teach copy is made up of a bunch of ingredients, 17 different ingredients. There's the benefit, the vehicle, the proof, easy if, without, even if, without statements, easy, convenient. I mean, I teach all these different ingredients. And then when you put the ingredients in an order, like a recipe, then you get strong copy. So that's kind of how I teach beginners. And that's kind of resonating with what you're kind of saying with the analytical piece.
Hey guys, it's Henry cutting in really quick. If you're enjoying this episode, I have another video I think you'll really love, especially if you're interested in copywriting. In 2019, the legendary copywriter Clayton Makepeace invited me to speak at his financial copywriting intensive. And he wanted me to talk about how I come up with my big ideas for copywriting promotions. So I boiled the process down to just 8 steps, 8 questions really, to ask yourself to take a weak idea and turn it into a monster that does $1 million, $10 million, or even $100 million in revenue. You can get that talk by going to henryb.co/idea. Once you sign up for my email list, you'll get that talk and a whole lot more goodies. Again, that's henryb.co/idea. All right, let's get back to the show. So there's a lot of copywriters that are really good at what they do, but can't teach other people. I see that pattern all the time. So I guess you have a degree in teaching. Do you think your educational background helped you in helping to communicate with students? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, you work with a little bit with Justin and Stefan in their Copy Accelerator program, and the people you're coaching keep winning their contests from what I understand. So What is it that you're doing differently in coaching that other copywriters can't really figure out?
So I've got a couple philosophies around coaching. I think the teaching degree doesn't do jack shit. But I do think my experience teaching does help, and just speaking in front of a classroom. And I used to tutor a lot, and I used to TA a lot. So I think that does help. But I think I got started coaching very early. So before Copy Accelerator existed, before all these coaching programs existed, I was coaching for a program called Copy Hour, headed by Derek Johansson. That started in 2018, I believe. Yeah, so I was coaching in 2018 for that company, and me and my buddy Austin Lee, who's a financial copywriter, we would coach 6 students at a time, for 2 months at a time, and then we do that over and over again. So I think I just got a lot of reps in. So I started seeing basically the same mistakes, the same client questions, I started seeing all the patterns right early on. And then I just kept doing coaching because I loved it, and I just got more and more reps at it. And so I've seen basically every problem that a beginning copywriter can run through. I can predict off of the first 5 minutes how well they're going to do, or how fast they're going to ascend, or what problems they're going to run to. And a lot of the psychotherapeutic work that I did on my own has kind of added to my ability to see, and added to my ability to teach and to influence the students. So if I had to boil all of it down to what makes my coaching effective, is just repetitions. I've just done it. I think I've done more one-on-one coaching than any other person on the planet in terms of copywriting.
That's a big claim.
That's a big claim. I don't know if it's true or not. It's just what I think,
David Garfinkel would disagree, but
sure.
I don't know. It's hard to quantify.
Maybe he's right. I don't actually know,
But so what are, I don't want to say mistakes. What are the things that new copywriters, I guess this can apply to business owners too, anybody trying to go out on their own. What are the things that gets the most in their way? Because a lot of this stuff comes internally. So what do you think? What are kind of the things that people are blocking themselves on that you see the most?
Are we talking about copywriters or business owners?
Uh, let's start with copywriters, and then I want to do business owners too.
Sure. So if we're talking about copywriters, then I assume we're talking about a person who's just starting out, right? Okay. And there's a couple different types of people in this category. Okay. There's a type of person, there's a couple different archetypes. Some people have a block with time and energy allocation. So they've got a 9 to 5 and they're trying to learn copyright on the side. Okay. They may have a family. They may not have a family. Okay. I've taught students who have been, they drive trucks for 9 hours a day and they're trying to learn copy on the side. So if that's the case, obviously there's going to be a time and energy. That's the bottleneck, right? You finish driving trucks for 9 hours a day. How much mental energy are you going to have to learn copy, to write copy, to struggle through that, right? So, so that's one type of person. Another type of person who comes in is leaving a already successful career. Okay. Sometimes I've had students who, had a successful career as a psychologist, as a lawyer, as a this, as a that. And those people tend to actually make a lot of fast progress because they understand they've already had success in this other field. So the same sort of rules for success apply, in terms of like taking action. They understand that it's not a button that you press and it's easy. It's like, okay, I have to learn this skill. They understand a lot of that, whereas some of the younger writers who start, they don't necessarily understand that yet. They don't understand that the path towards success is to do all the hard work.
So you're kind of saying the people that come in that were already successful don't have that particular block? Or
right. I think that's a mental block that when they come in, they already understand that. I understand that it takes hard work. And I know that the more I just go towards the hard work and I just do it, the faster the success will come. Whereas there are other people who come in, they're like, is there an easy path here somewhere? Is there an easy path somewhere? And they're just avoiding the hard work path.
Looking for the shortcuts.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
All right. What about business owners? What are the blocks you see? Because, as copywriters, we get to see inside in real good detail into a lot of different people's businesses. And we are technically business owners. So right. What are the kind of blocks you've seen holding business owners back?
Oh, man. Where do I start? There's a lot. Okay. And if a person comes in and they skip copywriting, they go straight into business ownership, man, there's just so many things you got to learn. So the way I teach like income scaling, right? So like, how do I increase my income? I had people who come in with making none and they want to make 2-3K a month, to people who come in making 10K a month. How do I get to 20? People who are at 20 and they want to get to, how do I get to more? So the way I teach income scaling is that as a copywriter, for example, you start by learning emails and short form copy, and then you move on to long form and upsells. You move on to all these progressively harder and harder pieces of copy. And as you do that and you master each skill, it's like a little graph, and your income starts going up because you're doing progressively more valuable skills that other people cannot do. Right. And then once you've mastered all of this stuff, upsells, long ass front end, long form, and the next portion is offer creation, right? Mm-hmm. How do I create an offer? So that's one of the growth areas I had in Paleo Access. I started coming up with the offers instead of them handing me the offer and saying, can you write the copy?
Just for people listening, an offer is the copy you use basically to sell a product. It's what the whole package is that you get. Because, right. Offer is very specific to direct response, especially in the marketing world. Right. So, what's your sales offer, I guess, is the best way to say it.
What's the product look like?
Yeah, exactly.
What product are we doing? Right.
Yeah.
That's basically the question.
All right. So Paleo Hacks, you said you were just starting to just take over the design of the offer.
Right. Offer construction. What offer should we do next? And Dave Sinek would come to me and ask that. And then I would decide. And then the product development team would go off and start creating the product. Right. So that's the next skill as your money goes up, right? And then after that, it's like operations, hiring, managing, and then business operations, manufacturing, sourcing, and that's on the far end of that in terms of owning a business, right? So when you jump into a business and you skip all this marketing stuff and you're trying to learn all these different pieces at once, it's just overwhelming, right? So that's a beginner business owner, what I would say is the main block. It's just there's too much stuff to learn. So that's why I don't really often suggest someone does that. I think it's much more, I think it's a smoother path if you master, like, say, marketing first, and then you become a business owner. Because
I think some skill within the business is necessary before you really launch. Like, don't just go off and start. This was how I tried to start copywriting, as I tried to write an ebook and sell it online myself, with only knowing, and only very vaguely knowing, the copywriting process. So all of the ad buying and all that stuff. And this was 2008. So it was a very free market back then as far as Google ads and Facebook ads. But it just failed because I hadn't really mastered the one skill. So one skill at a time.
One skill at a time, work inside of another successful business so you see what all the other skills are required.
Yeah.
That's a good way to learn, you know? And so, but for experienced business owners coming in, I would say people interactions is probably the biggest block. In general, I would say that business owners, the way they treat their employees is how they treat their kids, or they're like, you know, they're recreating a lot of family dynamics with the people in their business and how they manage the people. And I think that's a really big, tricky area that I see a lot of blocks in, and just the systems and the ops of businesses are usually just a mess. You know, so that's what I would say about that.
So one of the things that we talked about a little bit in our kind of get to know each other conversation was you've done a decent amount of experimentation with psychedelics. Is that something you're willing to talk about? Because I think the way you describe it is you're using psychedelics as a tool to help get rid of your own internal blocks, because everybody has certain things that are getting in their way in our own head. So can you kind of talk about your experience there? Because I have very little experience with psychedelics personally, although I find the topic fascinating.
All right, absolutely. Yeah, I talk about this all day. So about 4 years ago, I started work with a psychotherapist. You and I both know him, but he does not want to be named, so I won't name him. But I really took to this man's work. Okay, so I went to a few seminars. I fell in love with the work, and I saw so much. Suddenly, the first 30 years of my life made sense. You know, so I started using the work a lot to cover. I discovered that I had a crap load of mental blocks, okay, from all the programming in my childhood. So I got to work fixing those blocks on my own for myself. Okay, so I used his process, did thousands of repetitions. I like to tell people that in the first year, I did 8 of his exercises a day, you know, and the second year I did 4 a day, and just really, really went at it. And the more I did, the better my life got, and the healthier I felt. So I just kind of doubled down on it. Okay. Around the second or third year, I was at a mastermind. And if you know anything about rich people at masterminds, they like to talk about business, and they do a lot of psychedelics. And
one of my few experiences on psychedelics is on a mastermind event on a private island in Croatia.
Yeah, baby bathwater? Or?
Yeah, that was the first time I did mushrooms.
Okay.
And I did a real light dose, and it was just a little, things got a little colorful. So you're not going to get any kind of movement or change from that. But that was the first time I ever experienced it.
Right. So I, from someone who's, you know, I look up to and I receive advice from, they were like, hey, you got to try shrooms. You know, if you're into this stuff, the inner healing stuff, you got to try shrooms. So my wife, but at the time she was my girlfriend, we acquired some and decided to experiment after I did a bunch of research, because I had always grown up like a straight edge. I didn't drink, didn't do drugs. So this is a big step for me. And we both tried it, and immediately it was a very eye-opening experience. And it allows you to see your own triggers a lot better. So it elucidates all your own triggers. So a lot of times when you do the inner healing work, one of the biggest blocks is that it's hard to be aware of your own stuff. It's easy to see other people's gunk, like their patterns or whatever. It's hard to see your own patterns. Psychedelics allow you to see your own patterns much more clearly. Okay. So that's kind of what I discovered. And then I discovered that each time I did them, okay, I started trying to do the psychotherapeutic work while tripping. And I discovered that, holy cow, this actually moves a huge block. And what used to take me 3 months of these psychotherapeutic exercises to get rid of an emotional pattern or negative thought pattern or whatever, now it takes me it's much faster. It's just one session, it's gone, right? So I was like, what if I just continued to do this? And so I had some resistance against that because I was like, am I fucking my brain up? But each time I did it, I just felt better, moved a bigger block, made more money. And so I just kept doing that. And then
I guess I want to be a little bit cautious because you've obviously had a great experience, but there are people that I've heard horror stories of like mental breaks and triggered schizophrenia and stuff. So what kind of warnings would you give people before they try something like this?
Right. So I'm not recommending anyone do anything because I don't want to hold myself liable. Okay. But this is just my personal experience. Okay. These bad trips and bad experiences with people, I believe almost everything is a mental block. Okay. It's a script, it's programming, and it's defense mechanisms with reactions to what your programming is from your childhood. But if you're having a bad trip or something, you're basically missing this component of being able to talk to your inner child. That's it. The two really have to go together. And if you're just doing psychedelics with no respect for this other side or no knowledge of this other side, there's a lot of stuff. Like, I don't just do them willy-nilly. I pay attention to setting. I have a process that I do and I walk my students through. It's controlled. Okay. And then when stuff comes up, we use the process that I've all of these experiences, I've developed this process to be able to process emotions. And so we basically help students through that. And that I have not had a bad experience yet. And I've done dozens with students. So this is just my personal belief. Okay. Maybe people out there have had bad experiences. I trust that. I'm not arguing against that. But my personal belief is that with this process, with the right process, it's always a good thing. So I don't know. That's just my belief.
Yeah, I would really I know the laws are changing around psychedelics very slowly, but the therapeutic benefits are becoming more and more obvious, especially MDMA, psilocybin. People are kind of gravitating away from LSD in the research I've seen. But yeah, in controlled settings, that's what the thing is. We need more professionals around this to help guide people through the process. Right. People that actually done all the research and know what can go wrong and know how to fix these problems. That's why, I've always been hesitant to dive in any deeper, just because I don't have that coach in my life that could guide me through that experience exactly. So again, right. I just want to caution people before they dive into this thing to do it with a lot of intention and a lot of research and hopefully some good guidance.
Absolutely.
But also for legal reasons, don't do it at all. That's illegal.
Right. I agree with everything you said.
All right. So what's your business like right now? I know you're coaching some students. Are you also still working with clients?
No. So I've gone through a process of really focusing and centralizing what I do. And so I used to work with clients. My day, let's say 3 years ago was like paleo hacks work, coaching, and some client work on the side. And then gradually I worked less and less with clients because I just wanted to work with clients who I liked and I enjoyed working with and that I made good money from. And I started tossing all the backlines. I just started realizing that most clients suck. So I just stopped looking for clients and just kind of focused on what I liked. And so then it became just paleo hacks and coaching. And then gradually the coaching side started taking off more and more because of just people I coached would just, the other side of this is that like I started incorporating the mindset work in my coaching with copywriters, and it just made the thing explode because students, once you remove their mindset blocks, they just make a lot more money much faster. So, I had students with they would just have fear around charging higher rates. And we do some work around that fear would be gone. And then suddenly their income just doubles. Okay. So that's not uncommon. It sounds great. It sounds like marketing, whatever, but I'm just kind of stating what has happened with me and my students.
It also depends on where their income's at. Like if you're at, $80,000 a year, it's a lot easier to double your income than if you're at 400.
Absolutely.
So I don't want to just blanket statement, double your income, but especially for beginners, believe it or not, you will have a couple of years of growth in there where you double your income from copywriting if you really stick with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, what was the original question? I kind of lost my train of thought.
I was asking if you were working with clients at all, and you were just kind of explaining your
right. So that started taking off, and recently I quit Paleo Hacks just to work on my coaching thing. So that decision was just based on how much money I made from the amount of time I spent doing something, okay, how much I enjoyed it, and if I had passion for it or not. And I just started recently, I've started feeling like this is my purpose in life, is this coaching business, right? And it's gravitated even more and more towards. So I had a recent launch of a program called 0 to 5K. It's just a beginner copywriters program, but it's my specific take on it. Basically, we focus on two things: is you write, I give you feedback. Okay, and I've hired coaches that I've trained that have been past students that give feedback. We do that as many times as possible, and that's the one leverage point you take to get good really fast. And then the other portion is mindset calls. So I start moving students through my mindset, process. And and that was a program I just recently launched. And I think my next offer is I want to release something that changes the world. I want to create an offer that spreads across the world in terms of being able to rewire your own brain, restructure your inner world. And
I mean, that's a fairly large ambition.
Yeah.
So how that, I mean, I kind of want to dig into that more.
Sure.
You're going from, so you're trying to skip out incremental steps in there, it feels like, to change the world with one offer. What's the plan? Like, how are you plan on doing that? That's just such an enormous claim.
Yeah. So I'm skipping a lot of woo-woo stuff that I haven't mentioned as well.
Let's do the woo-woo, man.
Okay. Well, in the past 6 months, I've kind of started, I don't know what to call them. Okay. Other than messages from God or the universe or something. Sometimes I just get messages kind of beamed into me, and I've like resisted them at first, but then the more I started listening to them, the better my life gets.
So does that show up as like a sentence, a thought? Like, what is it?
So I meditate a lot. Sometimes it comes to me as a sentence. Sometimes it comes to me as an image. Okay. And sometimes it comes to me as here's a mental block you have that you need to work on in order to achieve. So I started working with a different coach recently, who's a more an intuitive coach. So it's even more in the woo-woo realm. And I've learned to just kind of, if I have a goal in mind or something, I write it in something called a surrender circle. And then I ask the universe for it. And I ask the universe to show me signs as to how to achieve it. Okay. And so I've kind of been following that framework. Sounds very woo-woo, but I think one of my strengths is I have both the woo-woo side and the like years and years of hard technical experience in marketing. And so combined, I think is a superpower. So back to kind of my goal is I want to create a totally canned course. Okay. So it's a video course, and it's where I walk people through meditations and visualizations and teach them my process. Okay. And then it really should be like a $2,000 course or something. Okay. But I'm not going to sell it. I'm going to sell it for $1. And then the upsell one is going to be a weekly call on Zoom that I charge $200 for, $200 a month. And it's just a group thing on Zoom. You join the group call, I coach the process, I have people do hot seats. And then that's the whole funnel structure that I want to launch next.
How do you scale something that, you have to be guiding to change the world? Or is the $1 offer going to be enough?
The $1 offer is going to, so what I found with the majority of my students who go through my process is that they become walking testimonials and they tell everyone they know. So my plan is to have the same sort of phenomenon happen and have this course spread virally on its own organically. So they go through it, they get so much value out of it that they can't help but tell their friends. Then they just tell their friends, then they buy it for $1. and then they experience it. And then a portion of those will get put into the weekly group continuity calls. It's just one call a week, and that's where the profit center is. So,
I mean, I'm skeptical, but I'm eager to watch where it goes.
sure, absolutely. Yeah, I would be surprised if you weren't skeptical.
So we're coming up on the end here. Where can people go to follow you and keep up with all the coaching you're doing and the world-changing programs you're coming out with?
So you can sign up on my email list at ningliCopy.com. Ning Li, Li is spelled Li. It's just ningliCopy.com. And I have a Facebook group for copywriters. It's called Copywriters Giving Copywriters Feedback. You can join. People just give each other free feedback on their copy and to improve, because I think that's the biggest leverage point to improve. And all the mindset stuff is an offer I'll be launching soon. And it's not super built out yet. I'm kind of using the 0 to 5K group and the mindset calls I'm doing there to kind of set the framework and use those recordings as kind of like the basis for the offer. So yeah.
All right, very cool. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah. Thank you.